Hello? Okay, there we go. So, do you guys bow with your heads with me for a word of prayer? Dear Lord, thank you for this beautiful day, and thank you for giving us another day of life. Please be with me as I do worship today, and help it to be your words and not mine. And please speak to somebody today. In your name, amen. Okay, so I was wondering, you guys are like, every time a pastor starts a sermon and they go, so I was thinking what to do for the sermon on Sabbath today, and you're just like, of course you were thinking about it, thank you. Like, okay, anyway, so that's what I'm going to do. I was thinking what I was going to do for worship, and if my computer will only turn on, we'll find that out. Hello. Okay, anyways, so today's worship is going to be on surrender, like sort of piggybacking off of what Laura did. Anyways, so I had sort of a similar experience to Laura about surrender, as in a few weeks ago, I realized that my life wasn't where I exactly wanted it to be. And so I was like, I have all these bad habits, terrible habits, and I just don't feel like my spiritual life is good. So I was like, you know what? I need to get rid of all of this bad stuff in my life. And so I'm going to start by doing this and this and this. And, we're going to get this back on track, because that's what I do when I have a bunch of homework that's overdue. And I'm like, okay, now let's start to do homework. So I'm all like, we're gonna make this work, before I graduate, I'm gonna have something to say for that speech and everything. So I decided that I was going to, and you'll realize this later, I was going to mow my own lawn and get my life in order. So I came across this verse, and I mean everybody knows this verse, but it's Philippians 1:6. Let me grab my Bible, because I hate it when everybody has like a bunch of stuff up here and you're just like, okay, what's happening? Anyways, so Philippians 1:6, and it says, being confident of this very thing, that he who has begun a good work in you will complete it until the day of Jesus Christ. So I'm like, all right, so God is doing a good work in me, and right now I know that that's kind of stalling, so we need to move this along. So how are we going to do this? So, God has promised to do work in us, but what if we decide that we want to do the work for him? Because that's what I decided I was going to do, because, I've done it all my life, I can do my own stuff, Anyway, so what if all our good intentions, our efforts, get in the way of God and his work? Okay, so I thought of this analogy. What if we all were like, okay, we want this place to look really nice for grad, and I know it's not, but what if that field over there was like really overgrown, full of grass? So what if we decided, hey, we don't really trust, and I'm picking on Lucas and Sam, but we don't really trust them to mow the lawns for us. So but there's not enough mowers for all of us to do the work, so we just get scissors and start chopping away at the grass, right? And everybody's in a different part of the field, because everybody thinks that a different part of the field is important, and we're all chopping away. And for instance, I will be chopping like down here because I'm really short, and say Brenna will be up here. Wouldn't that look really awkward? And then Lucas and Sam are here with the mowers going, I can't do my job because the student body is out on the field, and I'm going to mow them over as I try to fix this problem. So that's the analogy that I thought of. And that was like my life. I was just out there on the lawn, cutting away with the scissors. And let's be honest, by the time we would have gotten from one side of the field to the other, the side that we would have started on would have already been a mess again. So anyways, I'm going to read this quote from Ellen White, and it's from Steps to Christ, chapter 5. The warfare against self is the greatest battle that was ever fought. The yielding of self, surrendering all to the will of God, requires a struggle, but the soul must submit to God before it can be renewed in holiness. And that's what I needed to hear. And since my mom's like, read this book again, it'll help you. So I found that, and I thought that was really good. The government of God is not, as Satan would make it appear, founded upon a blind submission, an unreasoning control. And that's what I thought it was. I was like, God, I've got to control my life. This is really important to me, even though I'm not doing anything about it. And anyways, it appeals to the intellect and the conscience. Come now and let us reason together. God doesn't just want to, he does want to take over your life, but it's not like, oh no, now everything is going to go wrong. He's going to reason with you. Is the Creator inviting to the beings he has made? So God does not force the will of his creatures. He cannot accept a homage that is not willingly and intelligently given. A mere forced submission would prevent all real development of the mind. And that put peace in my heart. So, if you guys could turn with me to Proverbs 23:26. And it says, "My son, give me your heart, and let your eyes observe my ways." It doesn't say, son, give me your mind, give me your brain, and I will think for you, and I will make all of the decisions, and you won't even know what's happening. No, it says, give me your heart. Give me your desires. So that when I ask you to do something, it's not only me going, no, I don't think I want you to do that. Hey, why don't you do this? I know you would hate to do this, but let's do this. No, it's God taking your will and molding it to his so that it doesn't feel like you're giving something up. It feels like you're gaining something. For instance, if you need help with math and you're just like, oh my goodness, I'm figuring out this problem, but I just can't figure it out. And then you come to the teacher and you ask the teacher, I need help figuring out this problem. Could you help me out? That's sort of like that. You gain something from them. It's not like they're like, here, give me the problem now. I'm not going to let you have the answer. Although I feel like, doing that sometimes, that's fun. Anyways, so other people sometimes say it better than I can, so I'm going to read 2 quick parables from this book that Miss Miriam reads to us girls sometimes. And I think she's read this one once, but I'm not sure, maybe. Anyways, so I'm going to read this again. It's called The Plot of Ground. "Herein is my Father glorified, that ye bear much fruit. So shall ye be my disciples." John 15:8. This is the story of a plot of ground that wanted to be a garden. The story actually begins with a farmer who purchased a lot of ground at great expense. He then provided some seed of excellent quality and came to the plot of ground and sowed the seed. Well, the plot of ground rejoiced. It had always wanted to be a garden, and it began immediately to try to do its part toward becoming a garden of beauty and fruitfulness. It began to look at itself and and discovered, to its dismay, that it has covered with a number of unsightly weeds. There were thorns and thistles and briars and brambles. The plot of ground was concerned and ashamed. Before the coming of the farmer, it hadn't paid much attention to such things, and the weeds had made terrible inroads. Their roots were deeply entrenched in the soil. How can I receive any benefit from the seed when all these weeds are growing unchecked? Wondered the plot of ground. Everybody knows that a garden must be weeded in order for seed to grow. So it began immediate efforts to try to remove the weeds. It wanted to cooperate with the farmer so that the time would come as quickly as possible when it would no longer be just an ugly weed patch, but would become a lovely garden. The plot of ground struggled and fretted. It really wanted to get rid of its weeds, but the problem was figuring out how. And the instructions about weed pulling seemed to be vague and contrary. The plot of ground heard from one source that if it would get rid of the leaves and stems, the farmer would then be willing to pull out the roots. but it discovered that it was too weak to get rid of the leaves and stems. It was told that if a plot of ground did its part, the farmer would do his part. But the plot of ground seemed unable to do any part of the weed pulling for itself. It was often told to try hard to overcome the weeds, but it didn't exactly know how to do that either. And when the weeds were still apparent week after week, those around the plot of ground, and even the plot of ground itself, began to wonder if it were really sincere in wanting to get rid of the weeds. Someone suggested to the plot of ground that it would not try to remove the weeds from the whole garden all at once, but concentrate on just removing one weed at a time. That would be easier. But the plot of ground found itself unable to remove even one weed. At times, the plot of ground would almost give up in discouragement at the lack of progress being made. But then, it would once again picture the garden it longed to become, and it would put forth earnest efforts to try to be rid of the weeds. But all the efforts the plot of ground made to rid itself of the thorns and briars ended in nothing. One day, the plot of ground was forced to admit that it would never become a beautiful garden on its own. And on that day, that very day, the farmer came to the plot of ground with some terrific news. The farmer had come often before, but the plot of ground had been so busy struggling with the weeds that it hadn't really taken time to listen. The farmer told the plot of ground something that was almost impossible to believe. It seemed at first glance to go contrary to everything the plot of ground had ever heard about gardening. Here is what the farmer said. It is not the responsibility of the garden to get rid of its weeds. That is the work of the gardener. It is the gardener who pulls the weeds. Shocking. Well, you can see right away that the plot of ground had a hard time with that one. Who ever heard of a gardener who was willing to pull the weeds from his garden? Who ever heard of a plot of ground that wasn't expected to first rid itself of its own weeds before a gardener would be willing to come and work there? No wonder the plot of ground had trouble with the farmer's announcement, but it was either that or give up all hope of becoming a garden. So the plot of ground I'm dying. These braces are killing me. Okay, now that I've made my excuses. So the plot of ground surrendered to the farmer and allowed him to pull the weeds. And the first thing you know, the weeds were being pulled. And by the roots, too. Not just the leaves and stems went, but the whole plant was uprooted and taken far away from the plot of ground, and the garden began to grow and develop. As time passed, the plot of ground, now a beautiful garden, continued to allow the gardener to do his work. And the garden continued to do its work. It continued to accept the seed that the gardener sowed, drank deeply of the water the gardener showered, and basked in the sunshine that the gardener provided. The plants in the garden grew and brought forth fruit, some 100-fold, some 60, and some 30. So that kind of, yeah. Anyways, that was like speaking to me because obviously that's what I needed. Anyways, so we should stop trying to pull out our own weeds and let God do it. And as I was looking through this book, trying to figure, something on surrender, I also came across another little thing, and don't worry, it's not very long. It's a poem. It's called I Don't and I Do. And I have two of my friends that are going to help me out with this poem, Richard and Shannon. I'm sorry, guys, I'm still recovering from the plague. Can you turn the lapel on?
Wireless.
Oh. Oh, okay. Okay. I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless, I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. Galatians 2:20. This is a poem about how we try to do things for ourselves sometimes. I know that I do, all the time. But in reality, if we don't know God, what is the point? Who are we doing it for? Okay, so the first stanza is called I Don't. My mother taught me not to smoke.
I don't.
Or listen to a naughty joke.
I don't.
On evil things I must not think. At pretty girls I must not wink.
I don't.
Wild men have women, wine, and song.
I don't.
To stay out late is very wrong.
I don't.
I've kissed no girls, not even one. I do not know how it is done. You must not think I have much fun.
I don't.
Okay, the next stanza is called I Do. My mother taught me how to pray.
I do.
My father taught me what to say.
I do.
They say to go to church each week and listen to the preacher speak.
I do.
My dean has taught me modesty, to wear my skirts below the knee.
I do.
Life and teachings helps me too. I learn Luke 5, verse 32, every night at 9 o'clock. Good kids meet to pray in bands.
I do.
We sing, if you're saved and you know it, clap your hands.
I do.
After church, they always say, come witness, it's the only way.
I do.
I do these things most every day. The dean has said, I found the way. Let's see. Clap your hands, go to church, say a prayer, learn a verse. I'm saved, yippee!
Wait, what did you say? Jesus Christ, who's he?
All right. My mother taught me how to pray,
I do.
to give my heart to Christ each day.
I do.
On God's own word I love to dwell, his love and grace to others tell.
I do.
To share my faith with friends and neighbors.
I do.
To try each day to do some favors.
I do.
If from his love myself I sever, I know my God forsakes me never. May you think I'll live forever.
I do.
Power to do. I was sick of all the don'ts of life, tired of trying to be good. My spirit longed for freedom to do the things I would. I will give you freedom, God's voice said to me, but you must die to have it, for that's the price you see. At first I fought and trembled. It seemed too much to pay. Better try than die, the devil did say. But now that self is vanished, I found my don'ts have too. Christ lives his life within me and gives me power to do. So it's not us who removes the weeds. It's God through his power. Okay, can we bow our heads for prayer? Dear Lord, thank you for this worship, and please help it to touch somebody's life today, and please be with us during the day and help us to remember whose power we rely on in everything that we do. In your name, amen.